Okay, looks like the video this is a new way that I'm trying to do a video with some different hardware. So I'm gonna see how it does. Today I got dope on my mind. I've been doing some videos and been having some things going kind of revealing to me in my personal life about dope, drugs. It seems like it would be a cut and dried, basic elementary thing, but really, I don't think it is. I think it is probably one of the more important issues with the faith-walking Christian today. And in this thing of dope, I also consider alcohol to be a dope. That's a mind-altering drug. Okay, let's start with hooch. If you're going to be a spiritual seeker, how much hooch should you be drinking? How much is okay? How much is acceptable to God? I've been a drinking man most all my life. Here recently, I'd say about 5 months, I was told by God not to drink, and I was told that in unction. I don't take it as like my personal lesson that drinking was bad and nobody should be drinking. I just take it as my personal lesson that God specifically did not want me to drink anymore. And when I asked why, the notion came back to me that the wine was not welcome where I was going. And by wine, of course, naturally I'm talking about the physical wine. Now, this week, a personal friend of mine had a heart attack, and he had heart attacks earlier this year, and they put him on some type of blood thinner. And I'm classifying this as dope medication, meds of just about every kind, because there's a thin line here. Anyway, back to the story. They put him on this medication that's to keep the blood thin. The guy starts cutting himself shaving, doesn't want to stop bleeding. Next thing you know, he quits taking medications. A month or so later, which was a blood thinner, he's having another heart attack, and the doctors are saying that it's his fault because he quit taking the blood thinner, and the butter and greases and so forth we put into our body started collecting in the heart stent that they put in the vein, and next thing they say it's his fault that he's sick and dying, or sick and possibly dying with bad heart disease because he quit taking the drugs that was prescribed to him. Now that to me is it's an entrapment for one thing, but I mean we all seem to be sewn to one drug or another. With me, even this damn thing here is a drug. It keeps me breathing at night. And if you talk about an addictant, this is an addictant. Just as any type of drug. If I notice a lot of people have to take headache pills, Excedrins or Tylenols and so forth, and they take them routinely. Kind of hard to get along in life without these drugs. Now, what drugs, if any, are good for us? Well, the truth is, I don't think any drug is good for the spirit of this human condition. I think that drugs can prolong some instances in life when your body is already damaged from a lack of obeying God. And it doesn't necessarily have to be you to disobey God. It could be your great-great-grandparents who disobeyed God, and on back through the generations, on back to the boat and beyond. That if God gave us a list of things that we were to partake of and eat, and if we do away with those list of things that He told us was good for us to eat, naturally we start eating the things that's bad for us to eat. Leviticus covers the rules, and I know there's other places that came later in the Bible that reverse what Leviticus said, or overthrowed the old law of what God was telling us what was good for the human body to consume and what wasn't. So we seem to all be suffering these ailments from this lack of being able to adhere to what God was telling us. about what was good for these human bodies to take in and what wasn't. We all seem to have heart disease. We all seem to have blood sugar problems. We all seem to have obesity problems. We all seem to have, it just goes on and on and on, as much as you want to sit and think about the ailments that we suffer from. There's a hell of a lot of ailments. So, the drugs, where do they come from? You know, the old book, and I'm sure most of you has already covered this, our word pharmacia comes from the former CEOs of the Old Testament. They saw the former things. They were soothsayers. They were people that could use these drugs to get you to go into a spiritual state, and you could have hallucinations and see things. And many of the times we write off the word hallucination as in something that's not real, but hallucinations are very real, and you actually are opening your eyes into another realm. This goes all the way back to the book of Enoch. We learn a lot of things about these guys that wanted to come to earth and didn't want to be born through women, and they wanted to marry into the daughters of Noah, and they wanted to intermingle with these human condition type people. And one of the things that those hands brought to us was one of them taught us how to cut roots. What does cut roots mean? We basically learn how to extract medicines or drugs from roots that make us feel better and do better. Okay, so we've got a band of guys that are obviously not doing what God instructed them to do, which shows they have a tendency to do the wrong thing. And some of the other things they showed us, taught us how to do, of course, was vanity, teaching our women to wear makeup and so forth, which seems like a small thing, but in the eyes of the holy, trust me, making yourself presentable to be screwed is not a small thing. But they gave us these types of things, and one of the most important things that's causing much detrimental today to the human condition is drugs. So they taught us how to cut the roots, they taught us how to extract the drugs out of it, and lo and behold, through some twist of a bunch of guys with these two serpents going around a pole, looking with the thing wrapped around a heart, the medical association I'm talking about seems to have found a way to get almost all of us adorned, hooked, addicted to these roots cuttings, to these drugs. So, you know, here we all are, praying to God for health, praying to God for every time we go down sick to help us, and very few percentage of us really wants to get down to the root of where our sickness comes from. Sickness is a spiritual problem. If we were so spiritually hard-headed and listen to God in the first place, and our generations and our forefathers would have listened to God about what was healthy to put in our bodies wouldn't be wrecked right now. We wouldn't have all these impurities and things. An interesting note, you know, that we should think about at this point is God looks at the human body as a temple. And something I just heard on a guy's video. Doug is his first name. I can't recall his last name. But one of the things he mentioned was that most of our drugs are sulfur-based. And I can remember quite a few drugs that I read about being sulfur-based. And he makes mention of there's a connection between sulfur and the fire and brimstone of hell. That it can be argued that brimstone is sulfur, because it's basically down there in the bowels and the heat and the hot of what is a likeness for hell. And but symbolically, we can see ourselves taking these little bits of hell, this sulfur, and constantly bringing it into the temple, which is our body, symbolic of the temple of God. And you know, hell, we're just hoping for the better. Well, there should be some prayer over these things that we're putting in our bodies, some blessing. We should ask God to help us and help these drugs have a good spiritual outcome as well as a favorable fleshly outcome of our bodies. In other words, if we're going to take in a drug to keep our nerves calm, a Valium or what have you, or whatever the doctor's prescribed, there's a lot of mind-altering behavioral drugs out there that people are taking today. If we're going to take those things, that's this physical part of it. We also need to complete with the spiritual part of it, and we need to pray to God, to ask for God to allow those drugs to have a good spiritual effect on our bodies as well as a physical good outcome to where it can help our bodies prolong in this life so that we can have the opportunity to gain the spiritualness needed to move on to the next step spiritually. So, there's a thin line there. How much do we try to hide our ass or cover our ass with the flesh versus should we just all be ready to move on to the spirit? Well, I'm a firm believer in the one main reason that the devil has so much control over alcohol and these drugs over the simple fact that he wants to cut your time short. You have an appointed time to be here in this world. And this world is a school. This world is a teaching opportunity for all of us. And if the devil can get in there and cut you short of the time you need to become a spiritual founded entity, that you can be acceptable to God, if he can cut you short of that education and get you on that butcher's block sooner than what you're slated to go on there and face God at that throne for judgment, you're not going to fare too well. So that's why it's not that the devil gets a big kick out of watching you stumble and fall when you're drunk, or the crazy funny things you may say when you're doped up. That's not his business. His business is to keep you here in hell. His business is to keep you with him. He doesn't want to leave with the only pleasure he has in life. Nobody minds being in hell, but everybody minds being anywhere alone. So the devil likes company. So the devil likes to keep you from finding God, so you can get off of this rock hurling through space, or this spaceship. You can almost think of it. If you want to get off of this impending death ride, and if you think death is not impending, look at everybody you've ever known. They're either dead or dying or going to die. So that's the main reason for all the dope pushing. That's the main reason that all the tricks of the psyche has been used to hook young people on drugs, to get our minds to open up to that spiritual domain dimension, to take our mind off of the true spiritual domain and dimension of man's relationship between God and man. That's a lifeline. He wants to blind your eyes to that. So I guess the main thing I'm trying to say here is think about in your daily walk as you're working and in thought today, and think about, how many drugs am I taking? Do I really need them? If a doctor's going to suggest a drug to you, find out if it is a trap. Find out what happens if you get off of these drugs. And you hear more and more warnings about that on TV commercials even. And make sure you let your doctor know if you stop taking them, because some of these drugs are a hook. And they're making money, but at the same time they are an addictant. So in more ways than one. So drugs is a big thing. I found my mind thinking about that. I thought these thoughts were worth trying to make a quick video on, and maybe to help us all kind of think during the course of the day. Maybe some of us are drinking. Maybe some of us are drinking in an unhealthy way. Maybe some of us are taking too many pills in an unhealthy way. Maybe some of us have a prescribed medicine, and that's all the excuse we need to eat them puppies like M&Ms. And then if that's the case, maybe we should slow down. Maybe we should even get to the point with a diet that we can stop taking a lot of meds. And that's an interesting concept of this whole drug thing. A lot of the stuff comes from dietary derivatives from dietary products and so forth. So, a lot of times it's just good diets that we need. And a lot of times it's our unhealthy diets that make us require drugs, dope, alcohol, so forth. So a healthy diet is definitely worth thinking about. I know myself personally, a few months ago I tried a juice diet, and it was one of the best things I've ever done for my body, as in it fed the micro nutrients, and it had an increase in micronutrients, and it actually put my body in a short healing state. And I was feeling good, man, for a few months. And in fact, I'm starting to feel a little sluggish now, and I'm thinking about doing a recap on that. But it takes away a lot of the need for a lot of the drugs that we take in our daily lives. And isn't that the key? If we can all be drug free and drunk free, I'll call it. I'm still not mad at wine. I don't think people in the Bible were. I think there's a lot of people who were drinking in the Bible, But I also think there's a hell of a lot of instances that the Bible showed us that drinking made us buffoons. It made us the bad decisions. There's also some instances where people were drinking to celebrate weddings, and it was a merriest and joyous occasion. So, it's like anything else. We can make anything bad for us. We can make anything good for us. I mean, it's all going to be the intent and the will of where your spirit wants to go. So with that being said, think about the drugs that you put in your body. Think about the drinks that you drink. This really is a temple, as in it does hold the Spirit of God. As in, God is teaching you. You are in class. And it is wise to keep this temple built up as long as you can to get as much of that teaching in your temple as you can. So it's something to think about during the course of the day, and I know I'm going to be thinking about it, and I hope you do as well. Okay, I'm going to try to download this video and see if this thing will work. It was a pleasure talking to you guys again, and I will talk at you later, people of Earth.